If you've got a Bible this morning, you can take it out and open up to the Gospel of Luke. We've been in a fun series over the summer, a little bit of a change of pace from what we typically do. Here at Central Church, we love to go verse by verse through the scripture, expositorily, going through books of the Bible. But for the summer, we've done kind of a change up a little bit, and we've done this fun series called Selah and the Sword, where we've been looking at some of the worship songs we sing as a church. The lyrics of those songs and why we sing the songs that we do, and the message behind some of those lyrics that we sing in our services. And so today, we're going to look at a particular song, and we're going to look at some of the scripture maybe that's behind that. And that song is What a God. We sang just a touch of it right before we moved into prayer and then to this time. It's a song that marvels at who God is, that reminds us of the awesomeness of God and his incredible, and can I say unexpected, grace and mercy in our lives. And I want us this morning to look at two different passages of scripture that help us to kind of flesh that out and to understand and illustrate that are from the Gospel of Luke. The first one is found in Luke chapter 8. So if you have a Bible, you can open it up there. If you have an info pack today, I would encourage you, take notes in that info pack. You'll see there's a bunch of lines there that you can take notes on. Maybe you have the My Central app. If you don't, let me encourage you to go to the App Store right now and download that. But there you'll find notes as well that you can follow along with. Luke chapter 8. This is a story of Jesus healing a woman in a crowd. Here's what it says in Luke chapter 8, verse 40. Now, when Jesus returned, and you might think, returned from where? Well, if you look a little bit earlier, Jesus and his disciples, they were ministering, and they get in a boat and they go across the Sea of Galilee. And this is where there is a storm that pops up on the Sea of Galilee, if you remember. And Jesus quiets the storm and calms the storm. Remember that story? That happens, and they sail across the rest of the sea, and they land at the region of the Gerasenes, where a demoniac, a man possessed by a legion of demons, comes out. Jesus casts out those demons. They get back in the boat and they sail back to the other side. So it's been quite a experience for these disciples, and they get back to the other side. So now when Jesus and his disciples returned to the area that they had left, a crowd welcomed him, for they were all expecting him. So they were kind of waiting for Jesus to come back. Like Jesus' disciples got in a boat, went away, did some crazy things out there, came back, and they were like waiting for Jesus to return. Verse 41, then a man named Jairus, a synagogue leader, came and fell at Jesus' feet, pleading with him to come to his house because his only daughter, a girl of about 12, was dying. As Jesus was on his way, the crowd almost crushed him. Ever been in a crowd like that? Ooh, some of you are like, yeah, I was at Life Fest. I was at that crowd, right? No, I wasn't there, but right, you've probably been in a crowd like that. We had the NFL draft here. There was like over 100,000 people crammed into the parking lot area, and you were like this, right? If you were down there, we were down there, right? And it was cool, but it was like, yeah, it's kind of sweaty and uncomfortable, right? The crowd almost crushed him. So there was a ton of people there as Jesus was trying to move along with Jairus to get to his house. Verse 43, a woman was there who had been subject to bleeding for 12 years, but no one could heal her. The same story is told in Mark chapter 5. And it says there in Mark chapter 5 that she had gone to many doctors and no one was able to help her. And it says there in Mark 5 that she had spent all her money as well trying to get better, to find a cure, going to these doctors. Verse 44, she came up behind him, behind Jesus, and touched the edge of his cloak. And immediately her bleeding stopped. Who touched me? Jesus asked. When they all denied it, Peter said, Master, the people are crowding and pressing against you. There are a lot of people touching you, Jesus, right? But Jesus said, someone touched me. I know that power has gone out from me. The woman, seeing that she could not go unnoticed, she was trying to blend into the crowd. She didn't really want to be noticed, but seeing that she could not go unnoticed, came trembling and fell at his feet. In the presence of all the people, this huge crowd that was there, she told why she had touched him and how she had been instantly healed. Then Jesus said to her, "Daughter, your faith has healed you. Go in peace." Amazing, miraculous healing, right? There's a very obvious contrast that's being brought out here by Luke as he writes down this story. It's not by accident that he mentions Jairus, the synagogue leader, and that Jesus is on his way to help his one and only daughter. And this woman in the crowd comes and touches the edge of Jesus's garment. The obvious contrast here is that Jairus is a highly respected, highly influential person, someone that you would expect Jesus to pay attention to. Someone that when he comes and begs Jesus, "Would you come?" you would expect Jesus to say, "Wow, you are an important person. I will go with you to help you." Yes. And the other person, just a random person in the crowd, but it's even less than that. She's not just another random person in a crushing crowd. She is this woman with this issue, a bleeding issue that means in that time and in that culture that she would be unworthy, that she would be an outcast from society. The law of the Old Testament, the ceremonial law, would make her unclean because of her condition, which means she could not enter the places of worship that everybody else could enter. She couldn't come to church or to the temple in that day. She was not allowed into the regular worship spaces. She would have been shunned by her family and forgotten by everybody because of her condition. Here's what I want us not to miss from this story today: that God's mercy and that God's grace extends to unexpected places. God's mercy and God's grace extends to unexpected places. Or you would expect Jairus to be the recipient of, the rabbi, Jesus, the holy man of his ministry. But you might not expect the one who is unworthy. You might not expect it to the person who didn't really deserve it or earn it, or who would have been forgotten, or who society had cast aside. What's so cool about this story is the healing that happens for this woman goes far beyond just the physical healing. That happens, and it is a miracle, and Jesus heals physically, absolutely. But I want you to look at the words of Jesus to this woman when she is healed. He says, "Daughter, your faith has healed you. Go in peace." He calls her daughter. A term, a familial term, a family term. Not woman, but daughter. See, I think it's significant because Jesus is speaking, I think, to this woman's identity. He was calling her by who she truly was. Underneath the shame of her condition, underneath the condemnation of the people around her, Jesus calls her daughter. In other words, saying, created in the image of God, an image bearer of the Father, daughter of God. This woman that everyone else had pushed away, this woman that everyone else said, "You are unclean, stay away. You can't come and worship with us. You can't come into the worship spaces. Stay back." He calls her daughter. And I love what he says to her at the end: "Go in peace." Go in peace. That word for peace is the Greek word eirene, which speaks to complete wholeness. It's kind of parallel to the Hebrew word shalom. It's more than just, "Oh, I feel good." It's completeness. It's brokenness being brought back together into wholeness as a person. It's as if Jesus was saying, "We're going to put you back together to who God created you to be." Not just a physical healing, but the whole person back together. I brought with me this morning an illustration. So I've got this nice $20 bill. Andrew Jackson, right? Is that who's on here? Jackson? Is it Andrew Jackson? Right? I think it's Andrew Jackson, okay? $20 bill. Ooh, I heard $20 bill. If I were to give this away today, is there anybody that would want this? Okay, I see a couple people. Few people out there that might want it. What if I took this $20 bill and I crumpled it up? Now do you want it? Oh, yeah, of course you do. What if I threw it down and stomped on it and stepped on it? And I will tell you, I was in the bathroom earlier. So I'm just saying. Just telling you where I walked today. Would you still want this? Probably. What if I took this $20 bill? We're not going to do this because this is gross. But what if I were to take this $20 bill and pass this around and say, a couple of you lick this? Right? Pass it to your neighbor. Maybe lick it on the other side. Right? And a bunch of people licked it. Would you still want that? Some of you are like, maybe not. Right? What if I took it and rubbed it on my sweaty armpits right now? Right? Right? What if I took it, crumpled it up, and threw it out in the street out there and just left it there for a week? Well, it'll probably be gone. But let's say nobody found it and it was still out there in a week, and then you came along and you found it. Would you pick it up and take it? What if it was a penny? You probably would, right? How many of you ever seen a penny on the ground and you're like, yep, I don't know where that's been. I'm just leaving that, right? Penny, maybe not. A $20 bill? Yeah, I think I probably would. Why? Because even though it's crinkled, even though it's stepped on, even though Pastor James licked it, right? Or something like that, right? It still has value, right? Of course it has value. It's still legal tender is what the American government says. It still belongs in the economy that it was made for. Even being crumpled up, even getting dirty, even being somewhere where it shouldn't have been, even all those things. When everyone saw this defiled woman, dirty, shameful, rejected, Jesus saw a daughter of God. Undiminished value in the sight of God. Listen, today you might feel crushed, stepped on, disregarded by others. But your value hasn't changed in the eyes of your Creator. He reaches out and calls to you, daughter. He reaches out and says to you, son. What a God. Right? What a God. This is the first hand that I saw right here. So we're going to give that to you. I didn't lick it. I was stepping on it, but you can have it. Okay? All right? Woo! Listen, you don't have to be religious to receive the mercy and the grace of God. You don't have to do something to earn the mercy and the grace of God. We simply have to humble ourselves, come to the Lord in humility and in desperation. And I think that's what we see with this woman with the issue of blood in this story. The lyrics of that song, What a God, in the first verse, put those up. It says this, who thought I'd find you at the lowest place? Who knew you'd feel me in the crowd? Who knew you'd make good of my mistakes? You're nothing like I thought you were. You're better. Friends, God is so much better than even our expectations. He's so much better. Listen, he does not wait for you to be perfect. He doesn't wait for perfection from us because we'll never achieve that. He doesn't wait until we get all cleaned up spiritually to meet us. He meets us right where we're at when we reach out to him in humility. When we reach out with a fragile faith, saying, I'm not sure if I really believe all of this. When we reach out in circumstances that are dire. When we get to the spot where we say, Jesus, I surrender totally to you. And we touch the end of his garment. I love how the lyrics of this song, What a God, remind us that if we have him, we have all we need. We sang them earlier. If the highest place I reach is at your feet, then I've done it all. That's enough. If the best thing that I've seen, God, is your glory, I've seen it all. Your love has changed my life, forever satisfied. God, you are my everything. If one word is the only thing you speak, then I've heard it all. If I feel your heart and never see your hand, I still have it all. No treasure of this life, no blessing from God could ever satisfy. God, you are my everything. Now, we enjoy the blessings of God, don't get me wrong, and thank God for his good favor and blessing in our life. But friends, he has to be our everything. We have to be seeking him, not the result, not the gift, not the blessings of God. Friends, when we sing this, God, you are my everything, when we decide to declare this over our life, it is a powerful statement that we're making. God, you are my everything. Jesus, I want you more than anything else in this life. Friends, when you and I have that disposition in our life, God's mercy and his grace meets us in unexpected places. Maybe this morning you're in the room and you're thinking, I'm not good enough to receive from God. Or maybe you've bought into the lie from the devil that you are outside of the reach of God's mercy or God's grace. Or the mistake that you made or the mistakes that you've made are too much to overcome. Maybe you're the one in the room that needs to hear today that God's love reaches to unexpected places. Maybe today is the day for you to say, God, I'm ready for you to change my life. God, I'm ready to surrender to you. To say, God, you are my everything. There's a second Bible story that I want to look at that this song alludes to. That's a reminder of the unexpected reality that we see from God. It's a few chapters later. If you're in Luke chapter 8, you can flip over to Luke chapter 15. A couple chapters later, Jesus is telling a parable. He's telling a story, and it's about a son who demands his father's inheritance. He essentially tells his father, I wish you were dead. I want my inheritance now. And surprisingly, the father gives that son his inheritance. And that son takes the money, he runs off to a far land, and he wastes and spends all that money on wild, foolish living. And he runs out of money. And in the story that Jesus tells, he ends up broke. This son ends up broke. He's starving. He's humiliated. And the son finds himself in a pigsty feeding pigs to make ends meet. And he's longing for the slop that the pigs are eating to fill his hungry stomach. And in Luke chapter 15, verse 17, the climax of the parable says this: when he came to his senses, when this son came to his senses, he said, how many of my father's hired servants had food to spare? And here I am starving to death. I will set out and go back to my father and say to him, Father, I have sinned against heaven and against you. I'm no longer worthy to be called your son. Make me like one of your hired servants. So he got up and went to his father. If you're familiar with the story, you know what happens next. But while he was still a long way off in the distance, his father saw him and was filled with compassion for his son. And the father ran to his son, threw his arms around him, and kissed him. That the father in this story runs to his son is significant. In that culture, to run in that kind of a situation would be undignified for the father. It would be somewhat humiliating for that dad to do that. But it shows the passion of the father, the desire of the father to have his son back. And it shows that the father is waiting and watching for his wayward son to come home. Verse 21, the son said to his father, Father, I've sinned against heaven and against you. I'm no longer worthy to be called your son, right? He goes into this rehearsed speech that he said he was going to say to his dad. But the dad cuts him off. Verse 22, but the father said to his servants, quick, bring the best robe and put it on him. Put a ring on his finger and sandals on his feet. Bring the fattened calf and kill it. Let's have a feast and celebrate, for this son of mine was dead and is alive again. He was lost and is found. So they began to celebrate. It's a surprising picture. And if you look at Luke chapter 15, Jesus is telling this story in succession with a couple other stories or parables when some religious leaders and teachers of the law were asking Jesus, why are you dining with sinners? Why are you hanging out with these people? Why are you around these guys? And Jesus goes into this series of stories. The son here returns to his father. He's got a pre-rehearsed script that he would share. The son is expecting condemnation from his dad. He's expecting judgment from his dad. He's expecting his dad to say, see, I told you so. I knew you would be back. And probably rightfully so, he was expecting that. But instead of condemnation and judgment, he gets a robe. He gets a ring. He gets sandals. He gets the fattened calf. He gets the best of celebrations in his honor. You want to talk about unexpected? That would be unexpected. Jesus is telling this parable to illustrate the heart of God the Father. Here's the unexpected part of this that I don't want us to miss. God doesn't just forgive sin. He pursues the sinner. He doesn't just forgive sin, he pursues the sinner. Forgiveness of sin, yeah, that's what Christianity is all about, right? That's why Jesus died on the cross. Yeah, we get that, right? We know all about that. We kind of expect that. Yeah, that's what God does. That's what Jesus does, is he forgives sin, right? 1 John 1:9, if we confess our sin, he's faithful and just to forgive us of our sin, cleanse us from all unrighteousness, right? That's expected. But pursuing the perpetrator of that sin, running out to meet the one that turned their back on you? What a God. That's unexpected. What a God. What kind of God runs towards the rebel with arms outstretched? What kind of God throws a feast for the one who has failed? Our God does. Our God does. What a God. When the world expects rejection, Jesus offers restoration. When religion expects rules, Jesus offers relationship. When shame tries to silence and embarrass us in our lives, Jesus speaks identity over us. He says, daughter. He says, son. The lyrics of verse 2 of the song we're about to sing say this: I thought you'd show up for perfection. What kind of God looks for the lost? They say, the world says, the church says, it's over for you. For a sinner, you're too far gone. It's over. But you, God, say, no, it's not. No, it's not. Friends, there's good news today. There's good news today. Our God is the God of the unexpected. He's the one who heals the outcast. He's the one who runs to the rebellious. He's the one who speaks identity over the forgotten one. He's the one who throws parties for the prodigals when they return. What a God. What a God. This morning, you might be in the room and you're in that space. You're in the pigsty. And maybe it's taken the bottom of the barrel for you. Maybe it's taken to get you to this spot. And Satan's telling you you've gone too far. And the devil has lied to you and said, see, you're no good. You can't do it. And Jesus today, the heart of the Father today, says, son, come back. daughter, come back. Not just come back, but the father gets down and runs after you. He runs after you with outstretched arms to reach you, to do everything he has to do. He sent his son Jesus to die in your place. He sacrificed his one and only son because he loves you. So I want to challenge us today in this room. Would you run to him today? Would you return to him this morning? Would you be like the woman in the crowd? Fight through the crowd. It was probably a little uncomfortable for her to wedge herself through that crowd. But it says that she thought to herself in Mark 5, she thought to herself, if I can just touch the hem of his garment, I'll be healed. Friends, can you wedge yourself in? Can you just have the desire to go far enough to say, Jesus, I just need a touch from you. Whatever it takes. Lord, I need you more than anything else. God, you are my everything. We're going to sing that this morning. And my prayer for us this morning is that is not just a song, that those aren't just lyrics that come out of our vocal cords today, but I pray that we will internalize this prayer, that we will declare this and say, God, you are my everything. God, I need you more than anything else. I'm going to have you stand with me, if you would. Father, I thank you that you illustrate your heart to us. Father, thank you that recorded in your word is this beautiful story of this woman that fought through the crowd and just needed to touch the edge of your cloak. And God, Luke records that story in great contrast with this synagogue ruler. That Jesus isn't just for the high religious people. Jesus isn't just for the pastor. But Jesus is for the one in the crowd, the unknown, the forgotten one, the one who's been crushed and stepped on and muddied up and forgotten about in the gutter. And Jesus says, son, daughter, you belong to me. I'm redeeming you out of that. Lord, thank you that, Jesus, you don't leave us in the gutter. You don't say, oh, I'd love for you just to stay there. No, Jesus, that's what redemption means. You purchase us out of that. You straighten out that $20 bill. You wipe it off. You clean it up. You bring us from rags to riches spiritually. God, you impute righteousness over us. God, you make us white as snow, and you restore the value of the image of God in us. What a God. What a God that you are. And so, Lord, this morning, God, whether it's returning to you as a prodigal son or daughter, God, whether it's fighting through the crowd and reaching for you and saying, Jesus, if I just need a touch from you. Jesus, I just need to get close to you. Or God, maybe it's just, in some sense, sitting back a little bit and marveling at the greatness of our God, of the mercy and the grace that you've poured out on us. And Lord, not just on me, but Lord, on every person that I'll come in contact with. Lord, may we see those people through your eyes. God, may we be carriers of that mercy and of that grace for people around us. So Lord, right now we push in, we press in. God, we've got nowhere else to go right now. Lord, we've reserved moments at the end of this service for this point, for this time, God, for us to push into you, to say, what a God we serve. And so, Lord, right now, we look to you, we press in, and we run to you. Let's worship together.